Recently, a man in the United Kingdom is alleged to have lost $176 million in Bitcoin, not to a sophisticated cyber syndicate, but to someone simply watching him type a seed phrase through a CCTV camera. For years, the mainstream crypto narrative has promised that taking your digital assets off exchanges and locking them in a top-of-the-line hardware wallet makes you completely untouchable. They tell you that as long as you generate your 24-word seed phrase offline and hide it in a safe, your wealth is perfectly insulated from the chaos of the outside world. But if you look at the actual data surrounding self-custody failures, a terrifying reality begins to emerge. The greatest threat to your digital wealth is not a North Korean hacker sitting halfway across the globe, but rather physical proximity, supply chain vulnerabilities, and the catastrophic fragility of one piece of paper. My name is Lewis, and you are watching the Coin Bureau. As of March 23, 2026, Bitcoin and Ethereum combined represent approximately $1.65 trillion in total market capitalization. Bitcoin alone accounts for nearly $1.4 trillion of that total, with prices oscillating wildly over the past year. And when one digital asset can experience a price spread of nearly $62,000 in a year, the stakes for personal security absolutely could not be higher. The narrative surrounding this incredible wealth is clean, simple, and deeply ingrained in the original cypherpunk ethos. We are constantly told that the ultimate financial freedom is achieved by becoming your own bank, which means purchasing a hardware wallet, writing down a 24-word recovery phrase, and storing it somewhere secure. This single signature model is celebrated as the absolute gold standard for protecting your digital assets from centralized exchange collapses and government overreach. But if you look at the actual data, a very different and much darker picture emerges regarding the safety of your funds. According to comprehensive estimates published by Chainalysis in 2025, between 2.3 million and 3.7 million Bitcoin are permanently lost due to private key mismanagement. These staggering financial losses were not caused by sophisticated smart contract exploits or algorithmic trading failures. They were caused entirely by human error, environmental disasters, and the fundamental fragility of relying on one physical backup. Because while the mainstream headlines focus exclusively on massive exchange hacks, the silent epidemic of lost seed phrases is quietly destroying more generational wealth than hackers ever will. The mainstream financial press loves to focus on cryptographic vulnerabilities, but the reality is that the most devastating attacks completely bypass the cryptography altogether. This brings us back to the viral court case of the UK man whose wife allegedly stole his $176 million Bitcoin fortune. She did not need to crack the SHA-256 encryption algorithm or brute force the elliptic curve cryptography to access his funds. It's alleged that she simply observed him entering his seed phrase through a conveniently placed CCTV surveillance camera and supposedly walked away with a 9-figure fortune. And this is absolutely not an isolated physical vulnerability within the cryptocurrency ecosystem. Recently, white hat hacker Joe Grand released a series of demonstrations showing exactly how to physically extract recovery seeds directly from locked hardware wallets. By carefully manipulating the voltage and exploiting the physical circuitry of the device itself, he bypassed the protection entirely. Let us be precise about what is actually happening here with these physical exploits. Your hardware wallet is an incredible piece of cryptographic technology, but it remains a physical object subject to physical extraction techniques. And these terrifying physical threats are escalating at a truly alarming rate across the globe. According to tracking data compiled by Bitcoin security expert Jameson Lopp, reported physical attacks on crypto holders increased by 169% in the first 6 months of 2025 alone. This includes a terrifying 75% surge in what the industry calls wrench attacks, where criminals use coercive physical violence to force victims to unlock their devices. No amount of military-grade encryption can protect your assets when someone is physically threatening you in your own living room. Now, you might be thinking that as long as you keep your physical location secret and your device hidden, you are perfectly safe. But there is a harder question that this comforting narrative is actually masking. Because the real threat is not just physical violence. The real threat is supply chain compromise and user interface manipulation. Cast your mind back to February of 2025, when the Lazarus Group orchestrated the largest crypto heist in history by stealing approximately $1.5 billion of crypto from Bybit. They did not compromise the underlying private keys or break the multi-signature cryptography directly to access the 401,000 Ethereum. Instead, they executed a highly sophisticated supply chain attack on the Safe Wallet developer workstation, injecting malicious JavaScript directly into the front-end user interface. Here is exactly how this underlying mechanism actually works in practice. The attackers compromised the visual interface so that When the authorized signers reviewed the transaction on their computer screens, everything looked perfectly legitimate. But the underlying code had been manipulated to transfer the smart contract ownership directly to the North Korean hackers. The signers unknowingly authorized their own destruction because they trusted the software interface rather than verifying the raw data on their hardware wallet displays. This proves that even if your seed phrase is perfectly secure, your operational security can be completely dismantled by a compromised browser or a poisoned software update. And speaking of securing your digital wealth and staying ahead of the latest security threats before they hit the mainstream headlines, this is exactly why you need the Coin Bureau Telegram channel. It's where we share the latest breaking news, provide deep dive alpha, and give you the most important market updates all pinged directly to your device so that you do not miss a thing. Whether it's a critical hardware wallet firmware vulnerability or a massive shift in institutional custody trends, our members see it first. So sign up today using the link down below or by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. Now, let us get back to the fundamental flaws of the single signature security model. The foundational problem with the traditional cold wallet setup is that it places an unforgiving and unreasonable cognitive burden on the average user. Ethereum co-founder Vitalik Buterin has been one of the most vocal critics of this traditional seed phrase model for years. He has consistently argued that relying on one physical 24-word piece of paper creates a catastrophic single point of failure that is fundamentally incompatible with mainstream financial adoption. If your house burns down, if a flood destroys your safe, or if you simply misplace that piece of paper, your funds are gone permanently without any recourse. Vitalik points out that ordinary users are being asked to bear an extraordinary security burden with absolutely zero room for error. This is a standard of perfection that is simply not applied in any other area of personal finance or traditional banking. In order to solve this massive problem, Vitalik has aggressively championed the implementation of social recovery wallets powered by the ERC 4337 account abstraction standard. By May of 2025, the Ethereum ecosystem had already deployed approximately 23 million of these programmable smart accounts across the network. Put simply, the average everyday retail investor, these smart accounts allow users to designate a trusted set of guardians, which could be family members, secondary devices, or institutional services. If you lose your primary access, these guardians can collectively authorize a key reset after a mandatory time lock delay, completely eliminating the catastrophic risk of a lost seed phrase. The mainstream narrative tells you that you must be a lone wolf to truly own your crypto, but the industry is rapidly realizing that we must evolve past this lone wolf security model if we want to achieve true mass adoption. The professional standard for securing life-changing wealth is no longer one hardware wallet, but rather a robust multi-signature architecture. Multi-signature, or multisig, replaces the single point of failure by requiring multiple independent private keys to authorize any transaction. The most popular configuration for retail investors is the 2 of 3 multisig setup, which requires 2 out of 3 distinct keys to move any funds. Typically, you might keep one hardware wallet in your house, store a second device in a bank vault, and have a collaborative custody provider hold the third key. This creates an incredibly resilient web of redundancy that neutralizes almost every single attack vector we have discussed today. If a thief breaks into your home and steals your primary hardware wallet, they cannot still move your funds because they lack the required second signature. If your house burns down and destroys your primary device, well, you could simply use your backup device alongside the collaborative custody provider to recover your assets. And critically, this geographic distribution of keys provides the ultimate defense against the terrifying surge in physical wrench attacks. If criminals physically threaten you in your home, you can truthfully tell them that you do not possess the necessary keys to authorize a transaction on site. Firms like Casa and Unchained Capital have built businesses providing this exact collaborative custody model to retail users. Unchained Capital alone secures over $12 billion in Bitcoin across thousands of collaborative vaults as of 2025. And despite the purest objections that collaborative custody violates the core ethos of crypto, you still maintain absolute sovereign control over your wealth. Because you hold 2 of the 3 keys, the service provider can never move a single Satoshi without your explicit cooperation. But you can always recover your funds if the provider goes bankrupt. This is not a compromise of your financial sovereignty. It is a necessary mathematical upgrade to your personal security architecture. Now, you might be wondering how the massive Wall Street asset managers secure their multi-billion-dollar crypto portfolios. They certainly are not writing 24 words on a piece of titanium and then burying it in the woods behind their corporate headquarters. Instead, institutions use an advanced evolution of this concept known as multi-party computation, or MPC for short. Firms like Fireblocks and BitGo use MPC to mathematically shard one private key into multiple pieces distributed across geographically isolated servers. The cryptographic signature is computed collectively by these shards without the full private key ever existing in one location at any given time. This completely eliminates the risk of a rogue employee or a compromised server extracting the master key and draining the corporate treasury. And the data proves that this distributed approach is overwhelmingly superior to the traditional single signature model. According to industry data from 2025, firms using regulated custodians with multisig or MPC architecture experienced 70% fewer security breaches compared to those relying on standard setups. For individual users who prefer not to use a collaborative partner, hardware manufacturers are also evolving their backup standards to meet these new threats. Trezor recently implemented Shamir's secret sharing on their Safe 5 and Model T devices, allowing users to cryptographically split their recovery seed into multiple unique shares. Unlike simply cutting a piece of paper in half, which experts like Jameson Lopp explicitly warn against, Shamir's secret sharing ensures that an incomplete set of shares reveals absolutely zero mathematical information about the underlying secret. And that brings us to the irony at the center of the self-custody movement. For over a decade, the crypto industry has preached that ultimate security comes from absolute, uncompromising independence. We were told to become our own banks, to trust absolutely no one, and to bear the entire burden of our financial security on our own shoulders. But the alleged $176 million CCTV theft and the 2.3 million permanently lost Bitcoin prove that this extreme isolation is actually our greatest vulnerability. The moment you take self-custody of your wealth using one device, you become your own bank, your own security guard, and perhaps, inevitably, your own worst enemy. By refusing to distribute our trust across multiple devices, geographic locations, and collaborative partners, we have made ourselves incredibly fragile targets. The original cypherpunk ethos was about eliminating centralized points of failure that could be exploited by corrupt governance or greedy corporations. But by relying on one hardware wallet and one piece of paper, we simply moved that catastrophic point of failure from the bank vault directly to our own living rooms. The future of digital wealth protection is not about extreme isolation, but rather about cryptographic resilience, geographic distribution, and intelligent redundancy. So, what's the final verdict on this terrifying security situation? Well, let's be blunt about the reality of modern digital asset security. On one hand, a standard hardware wallet remains a fantastic and necessary tool for getting your assets off centralized exchanges and eliminating counterparty risk. On the other hand, securing life-changing wealth with one device and one piece of paper means that you are playing a dangerous game of roulette with human error and physical threats. The transition from single signature to multisig and collaborative custody is the natural maturization of the self-sovereign philosophy. Hodlers need to move with the times or risk being left behind. But what do you think? Is multi-signature architecture the only true way to secure crypto? Or are standard hardware wallets still enough for the average everyday user? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And if you want to dive deeper into how institutional custody is reshaping the Bitcoin supply, well, you could check out that video right over here. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you again very soon. This is Lewis, signing off.